people who lived on this land first, they moved with the river, hunted seasonally, knew every bend and grove for thousands of years. Then Spanish explorers arrived in the early 1700s. They brought missionaries, soldiers, and a plan to make this frontier permanent. What happened next wasn't peaceful. It wasn't simple. Cultures collided, disease spread, power shifted, and in the middle of all of that, they built this, Mission San José. It wasn't just a church, it was a fortress, a farm, a community of hundreds. People lived inside these walls because outside them, survival wasn't guaranteed. This place has stood here for nearly 300 years, and today I'm walking through it because the story of how it got built, who built it, and why it's still standing matters more than most people realize. What's up, YouTube? It's Matt with the Matt Out Here YouTube channel. Today I'm here at the San José Mission in San Antonio, Texas, and I'm exploring one of the 5 missions that is here in San Antonio. The most popular mission is the one everybody knows, it's the Alamo, but I'd have to say the San José is probably the second most popular. There's a lot of weddings here, they still hold Sunday Mass, and there's a lot to see and a lot to explore. So come along with me, let's check this place out, and let me know what y'all think of the video in the comments. Alright y'all, let's go. Right away you can tell that this isn't just a stop you walk through and leave behind. You can rent a bike and move along the river mission to mission, like the landscape is inviting you to follow the same corridor people have been traveling here for centuries. And this visitor center is the doorway into that bigger story, because what's here today didn't just survive on its own. Storms hit it, time wore it down, and people had to decide if it was worth saving or not. That's why it's protected now, why it's still standing, and why you can show up on a normal day in San Antonio and step straight into nearly 300 years of history. The park is open daily from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., excluding holidays. Before you even step back outside, the visitor center does something important. It reframes what you're about to see. This isn't just a beautiful old mission. It's evidence of a full system that was built here in the early 1700s. That included people, labor, belief, and control on land that indigenous families had lived with for thousands of years. As you move through the exhibits, you start picking up the mission story the way archaeologists and historians do, through objects, fragments, and records, not just the big moments, but the everyday. The park's museum collection includes archaeology, art, historic objects, and archives, more than 1 million artifacts, and historical documents tied to the missions and the people before, during, and after the active mission period. What you see in here is the tip of a much bigger iceberg. And what hits me is how bilingual this place is, not just the labels but the history itself. Indigenous communities were pushed into a new way of life. Spanish missionaries brought religion and rules. Disease and disruption moved through the region. Cultures collided, blended, and changed forever. And the mission became the pressure point where all of that played out. Even the museum experience has its own history. The visitor center and museum here were part of the New Deal era. While the building was going up, the exhibits and dioramas were being designed and built through government programs, with artists and craftsmen creating scenes meant to help visitors picture mission life beyond the stone walls. And if you want the fastest way to get oriented, the park also runs a free film here about the people who built and lived in these missions. But for me, the exhibits do the same thing in a quieter way. They remind you that this place wasn't built to be photographed, it was built to be lived in. And meanwhile, back at the gift shop, out here away from the church itself, you can read the mission for what it really was on the frontier. Not just a sacred place, but a place built to hold people together when the world outside didn't feel stable. The San Antonio missions were targets for raids, especially Apache and Comanche raids, and Mission San José only had 2 Presidio soldiers assigned here. That meant a lot of the defense fell on the community itself. They couldn't always stop livestock from being taken, but they could make the center harder to crack. So over time, this place started to function like a fortress. Originally, it wasn't always fully enclosed like this, but by the late 1760s, the mission was converted into a defensive compound. 4 stone walls, gated entrances, watchtowers, built so you could see every approach and control who came in and out. And what's wild is that the wall isn't just a wall. The perimeter is made from rows of rooms, Indian quarters, stone structures that literally become the boundary. Home and defense in the same architecture. You'll notice the corners too, those reinforced points, built like bastions. That's not decoration, that's strategy, because outside these walls were the fields and ranch lands that kept the community alive. And the danger of competing groups who didn't see this place as theirs, standing here now, it's peaceful. But the design tells you the truth. They built this expecting pressure and violence. Once you step back inside the walls, the mission stops feeling like a landmark and starts reading like a small town, built for one purpose, to keep life going, day after day, in a place where nothing was guaranteed. The rhythm here was strict. The bell wasn't decoration, it was a schedule. People were called to worship multiple times a day, and the morning started very early. After sunrise mass, families went back to their quarters for a simple breakfast, corn, atole, and dried meat. Then the day turned into work. Men and boys were sent out to the labores, which were the fields, because food was the foundation of everything here. But it wasn't only farming. The mission pushed people into trades too. Textiles, tailoring, carpentry, blacksmithing, skills that could turn raw material into something useful, something durable. A mission like this was meant to produce cloth, tools, grain, goods. Because of the frontier, you couldn't rely on supply lines to save you. And the living spaces inside the compound tell you a lot about how this place functioned. At its peak around 1768, there were roughly 350 people that lived within these walls. Families packed into 2-room quarters that were built right into the perimeter of the mission itself. One main room, a kitchen, that was practical, tight, and very controlled. Inside, the items weren't fancy, but they were specific. A metate for grinding, a comal for cooking, water jars, storage, basic furniture. Everyday life was condensed. It's easy to romanticize this place now because the stone looks timeless, but living here meant living under rules, religious instruction, daily routines, a new structure laid over older lifeways. For indigenous communities who had moved with the river and seasons for thousands of years, mission life was a hard shift. Different rhythms, different authority, and different expectations, and all of it happening in one place, where worship, work, and housing and learning all occurred inside the same walls. You can feel that the mission was designed as a system, not just a church in the middle of an empty yard, a full complex. The church, the convento, storage, and granary space, workshops, quarters, and the infrastructure that made the whole thing possible. Because the mission didn't run on faith alone, it ran on water. Acequias, which were irrigation ditches, were essential. Fields depended on them, daily needs depended on them. The entire idea of the mission as a self-sustaining community depended on being able to control water and put it to work. That's the part that hits me. Behind the beauty, behind the stonework, there's this constant practical intelligence. Keep water moving, keep food growing, keep tools made, keep people organized, and keep going. And then you think about what it must have felt like in real time. Children growing up inside a walled compound, work days that began after the bell, the sound of tools in the workshops, smoke from cooking fires, dust in the courtyard, Spanish spoken in one corner, and indigenous languages spoken in another. A place that wasn't one story but many stories stacked on top of each other. Today it's quiet, you can wander around, you can take your time and check it all out. But if you listen for it, the mission still has a pulse. It's built into the layout, the routines it once demanded, and the way everything here was arranged around survival, not just to exist, but to endure. As I slowly approach the mission, you almost feel like you're stepping out of San Antonio for a second and into another century. Because the closer you get, the more unreal it feels that this exists in Texas. The limestone walls catching the sun like they've been warm for 300 years. A dome rising over the compound, arches and stonework that don't look like they belong on a frontier. They look like they were carried here in someone's memory from Spain and rebuilt by hand in a totally different world. And try to picture what that first sight must have done to you if you were arriving here in the 1700s. If If you were a Spanish friar or soldier riding it in from open country, dust in your teeth, heat pressing down, seeing a complex like this appear would have felt like a relief. Like home, or at least the idea of it. And if you were indigenous, brought here from the river and brush, and the seasonal rhythms you'd always known, imagine what it would have felt like to see this rising out of the landscape. Stone shaped into authority. A new kind of permanence. Something beautiful, yes, but also something that meant life was about to change. That's what makes this place hit harder when you slow down. It's not just historic, it's emotional architecture. The front of the church is art. You can see the intention in the carved detail. Ornament cut into limestone, a facade made to impress and inspire. It's faith translated into stone. It's a message meant to be read even if you don't speak the language. And the terrain around it does its own kind of storytelling. Texas sky wide and bright, the heat, the open air, the quiet brush beyond the walls. The mission almost glows against it, like someone planted a piece of old world design into raw frontier. Now follow me over here toward the convento, the friary complex, because this is where you feel the mission breathe. Those long arcades, they're not flashy like the facade, they're steady, repeating arches that create this rhythm as you walk, like footsteps turning into a pattern. Shade and shelter carved into the design. A place where the air cools down, where sound changes, where the pace slows without you even meaning to. And that's the point. This was the mission's nerve center, where the priests lived, where planning happened, where records were kept, where the days were organized and decisions were made. Quiet decisions that shaped what life looked like inside the compound. The church is what you remember in photos. The convento is what tells you how the place actually worked. Standing here, it's hard not to think about how life gets woven together in places like this. Belief and survival, beauty and pressure, cultures meeting and reshaping each other in ways nobody could fully control. You're looking at stone, yes, but you're also looking at people. Hands that cut it, carried it, set it, repaired it, and kept showing up inside these walls day after day. And for a moment, if you let it, it really does feel like time travel. Not because everything is frozen, because you can still sense what it must have meant to see this for the first time, on this land, under this sky, trying to figure out what kind of future this place was going to create. And after spending some time outdoors, I decided to step inside the church and slow down for a second. The first thing you notice inside the church isn't some big dramatic change. It's the sense of shelter. Outside, the light is hard and bright off the limestone, but in here it becomes calmer. It lands differently on the stone and it makes you pay attention. The space is simple, but it's not plain. You feel the weight of the walls and how long they've held this room together. You can't help but think about what this would have meant 300 years ago, when most of life out here was dust, heat, work, and uncertainty. This was the one place built for something beyond survival, a place meant to steady people. And what hits me is that it's still doing that. This isn't a sealed-off relic, it's still a living church. People still walk in here and sit down just like they have for generations. After moving through the church, I stepped outside for a moment. That grand entrance isn't just a doorway, it's a statement carved into limestone. Spanish Baccarat detail, cut by hand on a frontier, meant to tell you this place was permanent. And when you stand in front of it, you can almost feel what it was designed to do. Pull you in, lift your eyes, and remind you that even out here, under the Texas sky, someone believed beauty belonged. Right outside the main compound is the grist mill, basically the mission's working food machine. In the late 1700s, Spanish officials ordered the missions to start growing wheat. Early attempts failed because of storms and poor germination, but in 1794, Mission San José finally had its first successful wheat harvest, and that same year the mill was completed. This was the first grist mill in Texas, and it ran on water. The Acacia diverted San Antonio River water into a ditch and through a gate. The miller could open and close that gate depending on whether he was milling. Water filled a holding basin called the forebay, then released through a channel to spin a horizontal wooden water wheel. That wheel turned the machinery above and drove the millstones. Inside you can still see the 2 millstones in the hopper where grain was fed in. The finished flour dropped out below. The park notes this mill could grind about 60 pounds of wheat into flour in an hour, which is a big deal on a frontier where food security was everything. And the system didn't waste water. After it powered the wheel, it flowed out and could flood and irrigate a field behind the mill. Even the back wall tells a story. The mill was likely built into a quarried area, and you can still see the circular scars from the old lime kilns used before the mill. The structure you're looking at today was restored in the 1930s, but the idea is the same. Water in, grain in, flour out. This section here is the soldiers' quarters, and it's a good reminder that Mission San José wasn't protected by some huge military force. At different points there were only 2 Presidio soldiers stationed here, which meant the community had to do most of its own defending, especially with Apache and Comanche raids, targeting mission herds and ranch lands. The soldiers were more like a trained backbone, standing watch and helping organize defense and teaching people how to operate in a frontier world. And what I like is how the space around it tells on the history. An 18th century report describes the area between the church and the soldiers' quarters as a large enclosed space that served as both a cemetery and a military plaza, a place where mission residents practiced with guns and bows and drilled like a militia. Raids weren't some rare headline out here. They were a constant pressure the missions had to plan around. The San Antonio missions were rich targets because they kept herds, horses, and stored food, and a single hit could strip a community of its livestock fast. With so few soldiers assigned, security wasn't a standing army. It was neighbors, alarms, watch, and the ability to get behind stone quickly. And the response wasn't just spiritual, it was architectural. By the late 1760s, San Jose was converted into a defensive compound. And what I'm going to show you here now is the rose window, the most iconic detail at Mission San Jose. What makes it special isn't stained glass, it's the stone itself. That carved limestone frame is Spanish, colonial, Baroque, cut by hand with the kind of precision you don't expect to find on a frontier. The scroll work, the curves, the symmetry, it's basically craftsmanship turned into a signature. A reminder that this place wasn't only built to function. Someone cared enough to make it a beautiful, special place, bringing in old world artistry into Texas light and letting it live on for nearly 3 centuries. As I'm wrapping up here, what I keep thinking about is how much of this place is still intact. Not just the stone, but the story. Mission San Jose isn't a ruin you look at from a distance. It's a living site where you can still walk the same paths, study the same details, and feel the weight of nearly 300 years of people, work, and change. If you ever find yourself in San Antonio, put it on your list and don't rush it. Give it a little time because the longer you stay, the more it starts to reveal itself. Alright y'all, that's going to be a wrap on this video. I hope y'all enjoyed this place as much as I did, and definitely stay tuned because I got some really cool adventures coming up. So until next time y'all, have a great week and a good weekend, and I'll see ya.